Good morning, Africa, or should I say good morning? Because here we are again, morning democracy, celebrating longevity and pretending that political reincarnation is part of our constitution. Now, in case you don't know, earlier this week, Paul Biya was declared winner of yet another presidential election in Cameroon at the age of 92. Yes, you heard me, 92. Now, at that age, most people are celebrating birthdays with soft food and early bedtime. But nah, not for Papa Biya. No. He's out here collecting election certificates like honorary degrees. 40 plus years in power and still counting. And at this point, if Cameroon's presidency had a loyalty card, Biya would have qualified for lifetime membership and free trip to Geneva, which coincidentally, he already takes often, due to medical reasons. Now, this isn't just about Paul Biya. Africa has a type. Our continent is like that neighborhood where every landlord refuses to hand over the property even after tenants have paid in full. You remember Robert Mugabe, right, of Zimbabwe? Yes, the man who ruled for 37 years and said he will step down only when God told him to. Well, apparently, God had to send the military to deliver the message to him personally. Then there's Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo of Equatorial Guinea. He's been in power since 1979. Now, that same year is the year Sonny released The Walkman. Think about it. Wait, when he became president, Michael Jackson's Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, that song was topping the charts, and clearly, Obiang took that as a personal manifesto. Uganda's Yoweri Museveni, 40 years after and counting, Denis Sassou Nguesso of Congo-Brazzaville, in and out since 1970. These men have been around so long that African history books could use the tenure as a calendar. Children are born, growing up, and even retiring under the same president. And the funniest part, they all say the same thing. The people still love me. Of course they do, sir. Because when there's no other option on that ballot, love is compulsory, of course. These leaders hold on to power like a last slice of suya with both hands and a suspicious look around the table. But here's where it gets even more interesting, or should I say tragic, depending on how you see it. While the countries battle unemployment, insecurity, and poor health care, these fathers of the nation are still calling themselves visionary leaders. Visionary at 92? My dear, come on. At that age, even eyesight needs assistance. Meanwhile, young Africans, the supposed leaders of tomorrow, are still waiting for tomorrow to arrive. Because apparently, it's stuck in customs, held up by old men who refuse to pass the baton. We've normalized recycled leadership to the point where elections feel like family reunions. The same faces, the same speeches, the same "we will do better" promises. So yes, Paul Biya's victory is not just Cameroon's story. It's Africa's ongoing political documentary, how to stay president forever and make it look legal. We clap, we tweet, we sigh, and move on, like it's an episode of a long-running soap opera. Maybe one day we'll get new episodes with younger, bolder, innovative leaders who understand that governance is not an inheritance. But until then, let's raise a toast, or should I say cup of whatever you're drinking this morning, depending on your situation, to our evergreen presidents, the men who have turned power into a retirement plan. Because in Africa, leadership isn't a service, it's a lifetime appointment. If age truly comes with wisdom, Africa should be the smartest continent on earth. Good morning and welcome to a Sunday edition of Breakfast Extra. My name is Chiwete, and of course, I'm not here alone. The beautiful Judith Atibi is still here with me yet again.
Good morning, Chiwete. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Well, Africa is the smartest, is what? The wisest continent,
yeah,
on the globe.
I'm telling you, based on the elders we have in
Yeah. So I also do agree. But we're also this. No, I don't have the adjective. I don't have the adjective. I don't want to say it.
You don't. You don't say anything.
No, I don't say that. No. Don't put me in trouble.
Okay, all right. So you just won't say anything. Well, I've said what I would say. So,
Stella monologue, by the way, fantastic monologue. Absolutely love every second of it. Well done.
Thank you very much. All right, so of course, let's get the show on the road. It's time, of course, for the show to start proper. It's Breakfast Extra. Stay with us.
A very good morning to you and welcome to the Sunday edition of Breakfast Extra right here on News Central Television. Now, we have so much lined up for you today, so let's get started. We'll begin with the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, where tragedy struck once again. Lives were lost in a horrific truck collision near Kara Bridge. And later on, our extra special segment, we will shift to global diplomacy. Now, the United States has flagged Nigeria as a country of concern under a new directive from former President Donald Trump. Now, the President Donald Trump citing alleged persecution of Christians. But what are the political and diplomatic implications for Nigeria? And later on our Wellness Central today, we're going to be looking at something very important. The entirety of the month of October was Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And so to wrap it up nicely with a bow, we're going to be asking a very important question, and that is, why are Nigerian women still dying at alarming rates from a disease that's treatable when detected early? A friend of the house, Dr. Owen Omojo, will help us unpack the gaps, and she will join us later on the program. We also do have Focus Africa for you today, as hunger is tightening its grip on the Democratic Republic of Congo. The UN has now warned that over 26 million people are now facing severe food insecurity as conflict and declining aid push millions towards starvation. So from tragic crashes to questions of faith, health, and hunger, as always, it's always a packed show, and today's show will be no different. So, as we like to say, get started. Grab your tea, your coffee, your akara and pap, and get into it. Chiweta.
Of course, whatever it is you're taking this morning, just get into it straight up, because like Judith said, we have a lot to talk about.
Do you know I was calling you Chiweta instead of Chiwete?
Okay, so it's Chiweta.
I know, but I say Chiweta.
Okay.
Chiwetalu.
Yeah, I think so. Of course, I get that every time.
Yeah.
When I tell people my name, they always refer to him.
Yeah.
But his own case is Chiwetalu.
Yeah, why is yours Chiwete?
Chiweta. So I suspect it's a dialect thing. I'm from Delta, so I'm like Delta Igbo.
Yeah, he said it. So like, yes, I keep forgetting.
He's from the eastern part. I suspect there's some dialectal difference there.
Yeah. So is that the full name though?
So my name is Chiweta. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Really?
That's it.
Interesting. Have you heard Mazino's full name?
I think he's Mazino, right? Yeah. Is that something? Is that El Mazino? Is that something before the Mazino?
It's an entire sentence. Yeah, it is.
Interesting.
Anyway, well, let's get started, shall we? Let's bring you our big report for this morning. Welcome to Breakfast Extra.
Still Breakfast Extra right here on News Central. Our first story and big report today takes us to where tragedy struck along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway earlier this week. It's quite tragic. A multiple truck collision near Kara Bridge claimed several lives, including that of a police officer, leaving many others critically injured. Initial reports actually suggested that a brake failure and poor visibility might have caused the crash, which involved several heavy-duty vehicles and smaller cars, but the scene was quite chaotic. The emergency responders were, racing to rescue survivors and, clear the wreckage on Nigeria's busiest, or one of Nigeria's busiest highway. Of course, our lead correspondent, Ibadan Expressway, who covered the story for News Central, is on standby to give us an update on this. But first, here is his field report.
Yet another tragic accident on the Kara Bridge along Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and sadly this time the fatalities were too graphic to show on air. When News Central's crew arrived, at least 4 bodies had been recovered from the scene, one of them a police inspector. Eyewitnesses say 4 trucks and a towing vehicle were involved in this crash. One of the trucks reportedly suffered a brake failure and rammed into another, sparking a fire that consumed both occupants of the vehicle. Another trailer was forced to the edge of the bridge, its head disconnected and plunging into the water below. Witnesses believe the driver and passenger may have been trapped underwater. At the time of filing this report, a combined effort of the police, FRSC and LASMA had cleared part of the road, allowing traffic to begin moving slowly again. The Lagos State Commissioner of Police, CP Moshood Jimoh, has since warned operators of heavy-duty vehicles to ensure their trucks are in good working condition before getting on the road.
And as thoughts and prayers go out to the families and friends of the deceased from today's accident, commuters and users of this bridge are asking for 2 things. One, that traffic be properly controlled on this bridge, particularly as we get towards the end of the year. And secondly, that the bridge be properly maintained, especially because of the accidents that this particular bridge has witnessed throughout this year. In Lagos for News Central, Bernard Ake.
And thanks to Bernard Akede for that report. Now, he's going to be joining us live on the show this morning. Bernard joins us virtually. Bernard, good morning to you.
Good morning. I was about to say Mazino, sorry. Good morning, Chiweze. I believe that's what he said. His name is pronounced as. Good morning, Chiweze, and good morning, Judith.
Yeah, I had to do that. Bernard, good morning to you. Very gory, tragic incident on Kara Bridge. And just the fatalities and just talking about the fate of those drivers and even the security personnel who was doing his job is just heart-wrenching. But I would also like to get first-hand experience from you as well. What were the parts that didn't make it into that report?
I honestly, I don't even know how to explain. Look, we tried as much as possible to ensure that what we put on air concerning that report was something that could actually be put on air. It wasn't just tragic, it was grim. There were the truck that apparently suffered brake failure ran into another truck and immediately burst into flames, and the occupants were burnt instantly. I saw the images, I saw the videos of bodies that were brought out of that burnt truck as they were being put into body bags. They were completely burnt, and there was another person who was killed instantly on the road. And it was grim, like I said. You could see blood all over that particular bridge at that spot there, with human tissue, pulling out of this person's body. And then there was a police officer who was equally killed. And that's making at least 4 or 5 people that could be confirmed dead from that particular accident. And let's also remember, I did mention that truck you saw with the head disconnected, the head fell into the water and you could see just the tire of the truck sticking out. That was the only part that was visible to the human eye. That's the truck right there. There was reason to believe that the driver and the motorboy, at least 2 people, were still stuck inside that truck that had its head inside the water and was stuck there. For at least an hour, we were there trying to make sense of it all and trying to film the whole accident scene. The security operatives who were there and rescue agencies were trying to get a crane to pull out the trailer head from the water. And for at least 1 hour, that crane didn't come. Of course, partially because of the traffic that was caused by that accident. And so it was just a horrific scene. Look, I'm not one to be superstitious, but there are those who believe that because of the kind of accidents that had occurred on this Kara Bridge, and of course on the Otedola Bridge, not far from this one too, people have reason to believe that there may be something superstitious going on that bridge. I strongly just believe that human error, more often than not, causes most of these accidents that could really be avoidable. But to put in your words again, it was a really disastrous accident on that morning.
Bernard, tell us about what we can confirm at this point as regards the number of casualties.
In total, what we can still confirm for now is at least 6 persons would have passed away or had passed away from that accident. The numbers may have increased, but we have no record of any more than 6 as of now. And between then and now, that's all the information we have. Those numbers I counted. Now, the reason why I'm saying it may have increased is because we still don't know if there were people in that trailer head that plunged into the water beneath the bridge. The police officer who spoke to me initially upon arriving at the scene was the one who said to me that there's reason to believe that there are people in that trailer head that went into the water under the bridge. But until they pulled out, we wouldn't know. And for like an hour or more than an hour that we were there, there was no way to pull the trailer head out of the water. The commissioner of police was there before us, and he also explained what had happened. He did confirm as well that amongst the dead was a police inspector, who many people living in that particular area know too well. But to answer your question again, the most we could confirm was at least 6 people.
At least 6 people. Ben, I'm looking at the scenes right there on the screen there, and you can see that the borders of the bridge are quite low, right? And when you look on the other side, it's the same too, it's quite low. And Kara Bridge is notorious for accidents such as this. Same for Tedola Bridge, same for any other bridge, whether it's a third mainland or worse, Ojuelegba Bridge was notorious at the time. Let's talk about the barriers or the borders of those bridges and look at the infrastructural failures that we've had that can deter accidents, tragic accidents like this from happening again.
Okay, I would, if we have the clip of that bridge again, you'll see that just before you get to the border, there's a small pavement right there before getting to the border. So on a good day, you would not expect that a vehicle would go on that curb. That pavement is supposed to be some kind of distance between the border of the bridge and the road itself. That's the bridge itself. So I would not want to directly blame infrastructural error here, except if the vehicles are heavy duty like these trucks. Now then you will see the distance between the top of the vehicles and those borders. But for regular sedans or SUVs, that pavement is supposed to act like some kind of protection between the tire of the vehicle and the border of the bridge.
Right.
So again, I mean, of course, there could be other measures put in place now that we're seeing that we're having more accidents than we should along these bridges. So perhaps some kind of reconstruction work could go onto the bridge such that the borders will be raised a bit higher,
right,
to prevent things like these happening. And these are prevention measures. However, it's I don't think that the bridge is in such a bad condition that it should prevent accidents like this from happening. These are one-offs, but this is one too many, and this one was completely tragic. Again, it was claimed that a brake failure which the truck suffered is what caused it, and that's the clip you can see there. The truck that suffered the brake failure ran into another truck and burst into flames. I think actually we should be looking into proper care of vehicles, particularly heavy-duty trucks. And like the police commissioner did say, operators of heavy-duty trucks need to check their vehicles as regularly as possible, because more often than not, what we hear is brake failure. So I think these are avoidable things. But then again, it will not be out of place to ensure that some of these bridges are maintained, and that whatever has been noticed to have been ways that accidents could have been prevented could actually be put into place, like your suggestion, possibly raising the barriers and the borders of the bridge.
Yes, indeed.
Now, Bernard, when it comes to truck movement in Lagos, we are aware that there's actually a law that they shouldn't move during the daytime. But looking at what you experienced as regards this tragic incident on the Kara Bridge, would you say that there have been any difference if this, do you think this could have been averted if the trucks were moving at night?
Well, the coincidental thing is these trucks actually were moving at night. According to the information we got, this happened at about 4 a.m. And I'll break down the entire story I got from the police officer who I spoke to. I think that was the area commander. They got information of a truck that I think hit someone and was on the run. And then they chased it down and stopped the truck at Kara Bridge at about 4 a.m., between 4 and 5 a.m., before 5 a.m. anyway. And it was bad that was happening, and they went in a towing van to tow the truck away. And that was when another truck was coming behind. That one had to slow down because of the operation going on there. Now, the fourth truck coming from behind is the one that had, that suffered the brake failure and ran into the truck that was slowing down, thus pushing the truck that was being towed and the towing vehicle, and that was what sparked the chain reaction, basically. So it wasn't even about the time, but you're quite right. There has been a ruling that heavy-duty trucks carrying containers and stuff like that shouldn't move during the daytime. I think it's supposed to be between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m., if I'm not mistaken, but I'll confirm that again. So yes, we do still see trucks move outside of this time barrier that has been given. The problem now is enforcement of this law and these rules. Several times we've seen accidents like these. We've seen containers fall off trucks during the daytime. I mean, you're driving or you're in a commercial vehicle and you see trucks that could be hazardous to other road users. And then you begin to ask the operators or the operatives who keep asking for roadworthiness of vehicles. Just by looking at these trucks, you can tell that they are not roadworthy, some of them, without even asking for their documents. And I think this is where some of these things should start from. But yes, it was this particular accident happened very early in the morning. But again, it is a clarion call and a sound warning, that vehicles like this should not ply our roads during the daytime. I mean, imagine this happened during the busy hours of the day, say anything from 7 a.m. to 12 noon. What we would have been talking about, God forbid, would have been way worse than this.
Or worse during the rush hour period between 5:30 and 7 p.m.
5:30.
Yeah, I mean, Bernard, let's look at the enforcement agencies, whether it's the FRSC or the Lagos State personnel who are in charge of, checking roadworthiness. As we're talking about, these heavy-duty trucks, we have to look at the conditions of the truck as well. Last night, heading home, I didn't see that the truck was parked by the side of the road. I didn't see it. And what's even worse is that it was smoking. So again, my eyesight is zero. It's worse. And so you're driving at night. I literally cannot see. It looked like I was going into a smoke screen and something just said, move to the left. And immediately I move. That's when I realized this thing is stationary. It just stopped moving and is on the phone like, hey, where? I don't miss the tunnel. Can you imagine? What if so what happens to those who are supposed to be checking them? He didn't have any backlights on. He didn't have any brake lights on. He has no lights whatsoever, even moving at night. Should there be routine checks of these vehicles? Should all these persons, the owners of these heavy-duty trucks, whether public companies, private companies, or business owners, register and always have routine checks with the agencies? What can we do so that we can scrap out on road-unworthy vehicles, heavy-duty vehicles on the road completely?
I couldn't agree more with you, Judith. Definitely, this is an issue that has been going on for years. There should be routine checks, one, and then but beyond just routine checks, there should be sanctions. Now, I strongly believe that bad behavior will continue where there are no sanctions. Like they say, where there are no laws, there's no sin. And so we continue to see these vehicles. It happens in other countries, even in Africa. We don't even have to go far. There are countries in Africa where trucks without brake lights, trucks with broken tail lights, trucks without reflector lights, trucks that are smoky, all these kind of trucks are hazards to other road users, not just to themselves, and then regular checks of these trucks. That's one. Two, knowledge of road use by the drivers of these trucks. That's three. For example, the driver knows that when he or she parks their vehicle on the road, their caution sign should be at least 2 meters away from their truck, not just directly behind the truck, so that a car that is speeding doesn't get to see the caution until they're already smack in front of the truck, things like that. And of course, the owners of these vehicles too should be held accountable. More often than not, these trucks are not owned by the persons who are driving them, right? So the owners too should be held accountable, such that if the truck is apprehended for not having the right gear or the right gadget or the right things in place to ensure that it is safe to be on the road, not just the truck that will be impounded, the driver also will be apprehended, and the owners of the truck that's been operated will also be brought to book. I think until we start having consequences for these actions, it will continue to happen. As far back as 8-9 years ago, I've been covering traffic reports across Lagos, and just like you mentioned, Judith, the notorious Ojuelegba Bridge, we've seen containers fall off the bridge several times. We've seen trucks fall off the bridge. We've seen trucks fall down and completely cut the bridge up so that traffic cannot access that bridge. And many other bridges, the Otedola Bridge, you've seen the fire accident that happened there years ago. Several people lost their lives, cars were burnt. And then there's the Kara Bridge on top of the bridge and beneath the bridge as well. So there has to be, measures to punish offenders, such that these things are corrected. One, two, there has to be routine checks on these trucks, and three, there has to be the drivers of this truck have to have proper knowledge of driving, of road use, so that they don't just become a threat to themselves, but of course to other road users. Until these things come in place, strongly, I might add, sadly, we may continue to have this kind of accidents that are caused by actions of man.
Also accountability as well, because you see a heavily laden heavy-duty truck speeding. Why are you speeding? And you're struggling for a road with sedan cars. Are you sure, sir?
I think this is why the question of understanding the level of intelligence of these drivers also is very important.
Right.
And perhaps you might have to start to even increase or start to demand more from the kind of drivers you have on the road. Some of these people probably are not quite educated or quite enlightened enough. Some of them are there's conversations of even if they even have a driver's license. But away from that, Bernard, talk to us about the response of emergency agencies, because you said it that it took almost like an hour before we could get that crane to take out the head of that truck. But of course, there was also a fire incident as well. What was the response of the fire? The firefighters now, did they get on time, and even the police? Just take us through the emergency response for this particular incident.
Okay, I think the police did get there on time. Before we got there, the police had arrived. The fire rescue service also arrived on time. But the major issue they had was getting the crane to pull out that trailer head from the water. First of all, the traffic that was caused by this particular accident, I think that traffic, the ripple effect was felt all through the day till nighttime. That traffic prevented them from getting a crane to come to that area. I think, personally, because maybe they didn't have enough locations at different parts of the town where they could have the crane be brought from. The one, I think I overheard somebody mentioning that the one they were looking for was coming from, sadly, the direction of where the traffic was. So to get the crane through that traffic down to that particular incident must have been an issue. And it didn't come for the entire over 1 hour that we were there for. If they had such kind of equipment stationed in different parts of the city, possibly they could have had one coming from another area. And also this brings me to talking about proper traffic management. There are cities across the world where the drivers already know that should there be an incident, should they hear a siren or something, there's enough room that they keep for whatever vehicle is sounding the siren to pass. I think in Germany there's vehicles move to both sides of the road, and then you have to go. They leave the center of the road. There's some other countries where vehicles move to the right, and then there's one lane left on the left. Some it's the left, and then the lane is left open on the right. I think some of these measures should be brought into our own traffic rules if they are not there already, and people should be educated enough to know that when there's an incident or when there's an accident or when you hear a siren, as a matter of fact, that there should be some kind of allowance for passage of this siren. But then again, there have been abuse of sirens in this part of the world. So not to make a meal of, or not to make mockery of the incident, we've seen cases where people just begin to sound their sirens, and it's some young people who are running for a party and they have a vehicle that's making noise just so that they can get through. But these are things that we have to put in place when it comes to traffic management, when it comes to accidents and incidences on the road, such that should there be need for responses or for first responders, like you're clearly stating, Chiwete, we'll be able to have them get to the scene as quickly as possible, and possibly lives will be saved. Yeah,
Ben, I mean, there's a lot we need to unpack here, but let's go on a short break, shall we? You're watching Breakfast Extra here on News Central Television. We are talking about the incident that occurred on Cara Bridge. After the break, we get more details from our lead correspondent, Ben Adakede. Anyway, stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Breakfast Extra here on News Central Television. Before the break, we were on our big report where we have Ben Adakede, our lead correspondent here at News Central, who joined us. This is what happens when you don't get enough sleep. Who joined us to give us updates on an accident that occurred on Cara Bridge, a very tragic one that have led to the death of 6 lives, or drivers of the car, the heavy truck that burst into flames there, as well as a police officer who was at the scene of the crash. Bernard, thanks for being with us. let's talk about one agency that no one's putting a finger on, and it's a National Orientation Agency. We talked about three things here. One of them is overspeeding, the other is routine checks of the vehicle, but most importantly, education. Educating the citizens as well as the drivers, the importance of not misusing the sirens, the importance of making room, especially for emergency ambulances or fire trucks or, cranes or so much, a motorcade of police vehicles. Yesterday I was out on the roads, and the misuse of those vehicles also happens with the agency, especially with the security agencies. There was a traffic, of course, there's a huge fashion week going on, and there's a motorcycle rode in front of us, and he's hitting everyone's car and asking us to move, make way. I was like, oh, maybe something's going on. Tell me why it's black tinted SUVs with suited men moving. So let's talk about it in terms of the NOA and their responsibility to continue to re-educate or unlearn and relearn and educate the citizenry about the importance of life and the importance of time.
I totally agree with you, Judith. I'll start with the NOA, but then it's not just the NOA. I see that there has been some kind of decadence all across, even our schools. Now, look, I'm not ashamed to say it. I was born in the 80s, right? And right from then, from nursery school through to primary school, particularly, we had. I remember so well that there were commercials on TV and jingles on radio that talk about everything and anything that had to do with human life, basically, and had to do with orientation of the citizenry when it comes to as little as crossing the road, right? There were even songs put together by artists, by musicians, talking about, make you they look well before you cross, look left, look right, look left again. I don't know if people still know that that's the standard before crossing the road. There were agencies, the NOA then will have jingles and commercials talking about what time vehicles should ply the road, how fast vehicles should go, talking about what road signs mean, talking about what traffic signs mean, talking about traffic lights. Red means stop, yellow means ready, green means go. But what we get to see these days is from the moment you see yellow, cars are moving already. So what happened to these orientation messages? Basically, you have, there was a commercial by one Nollywood actor back then in the 90s, I think, and he was the one used by the National Orientation Agency to push forth this particular message. And they talked about traffic signs, talked about caution signs, talked about 2 meters away from your vehicle is where you put your caution, talked about what part of the road to park, talking about how to slow down, how to speed when you see speed limits. And then, in terms of getting your driver's license, do drivers still actually do driving tests? When they fail these tests, are they just handed their driver's license, or are they made to take the test again, not just for testing's sake, not just for the issuance of license sake, but to ensure that they do not constitute nuisance on the roads? So I agree with you, first of all, Judith. We need proper orientation, or as the case may be, we need reorientation by the major agencies. One, the National Orientation Agency. I've begun to see some commercials by the National Orientation Agency. One of them is on election, another one is on using pedestrian bridges and stuff like that. It needs to come out more. We need to improve. We need to increase these orientation messages, and it needs to be out as quickly as possible, because it's clear that people it's like a whole generation gap that has lost the message, lost the orientation of, and it's not just traffic use, it's everything in total, basically. And these are part of things that lead to the decadence we are beginning to see in society.
Right, especially on channels that they're on, because it's Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. Those long form ads are important. They make money for us, so we can pay the bills. But you need to be on channels where the younger generation, or that generation that missed out on the orientation.
Exactly. On social media, largely on social media.
Yeah, and also use the influencers. They're already there. Give them the money and use them. Yeah,
that's a good idea, if you ask me. The influencers are there, and trust whatever they tell people nowadays. The people are quick to remember that like any other thing we even read elsewhere. But Bernard, when we look at the issues now in terms of things that are causing accidents like this, we're talking drivers fatigue. We're talking about drivers not even being educated to understand road signs and know what to do on the road. We're talking about the fact that the trucks are not even in good conditions. who should we really be talking to right now to get the message and to make it effective? Because I want to believe that these drivers are working for someone. So I'm thinking, shouldn't we be talking to employers of these drivers as opposed to just, blaming the drivers and saying things? The employers should be the ones to take their time and select the right drivers who we hope they've educated well enough before they set them on the road. And also, this thing, I also hear that there's kind of like a target for this driver.
I was going to say that because,
right? Exactly, but the target is also given to them by these employers.
Yeah, because capitalism is the name of the game. Bennett.
I agree, it's capitalism. And then, while we were at the accident scene, there was this small conversation that sparked up, like what Chiwete is saying now, about targeting the owners of the owners of these trucks, not just the operators, not just the drivers. And someone whispered beside me and said, "Now big men, now get the trucks. Now ordinary man like me and you don't forget this kind of truck, but who go arrest the big man?" So already there's this notion that these trucks are owned by wealthy. Wealthy people who are people of affluence, basically, who subtly may be above the law or may be too big for the law to completely put their fingers on. And if you come to think about it, don't take my word for it, but go down in history lane. When these trucks are being apprehended, when the drivers are being arrested, how many times do we hear about the owners of the trucks being brought to book? And how many times who do we know are the owners of these trucks? Basically, how many have been arrested and have publicly been brought forward to say, this is the person behind so and so truck that caused so accidents along Otedola Bridge or on Kara Bridge, or the truck that experienced brake failure and caused the chain accident that we saw at the Ojuelegba Bridge. I think, again, punishment and public punishment, so to say, or as a matter of fact, these people being apprehended, being punished, being arrested, and it being public news may be a deterrent, So definitely, I do agree with you, certainly, that not just the operators of these trucks, but the owners of them. More often than not, the operators are not the owners, almost always not the owners. So the owners also should be arrested. They are not just responsible for the trucks, for the containers, or for whatever the trucks are carrying. They're responsible for the condition of the trucks. More often than not, you wouldn't expect the driver to be the one who would maintain the trucks, who would ensure that the trucks are roadworthy, whose name the roadworthiness papers will be in. It will be in the name of the owners of these trucks and not just the operators. So yes, I totally agree with you. The operators should be held accountable more often than not when we have incidents like this. Perhaps if that begins to happen, from time to time, we'll have owners of these particular trucks do their due diligence and ensure that their trucks are roadworthy.
Thank you so much, Bernard, for having this conversation with us. I mean, it's heartbreaking that the Kara Bridge continues to be a recurring site of tragedy. I mean, yet it highlights, how urgent a reform is needed in Nigeria's transport and road safety systems.
Thank you again, Bernard. We appreciate you for that update. Bernard Akede, our lead correspondent with News Central Television. Let's go on a short break, shall we? When we return, we'll bring you the dailies for Sunday. Stay with us. And welcome back. When you hear that sound, it's time for us to bring you the major dailies for Sunday. That's quite major, right? What's going on, especially with the U.S. and its deeming Nigeria as a country of concern due to Christian genocide. They've labeled the country saying that there have been repeated attacks of Christians and deeming it as Christian genocide. We're going to get started with one of the biggest dailies in Nigeria, and that's the Daily Trust. Let's see there now. Fuel price may go up, marketers. You can see that right there up on the screen. Forgive me for that. Let's pull that up again, can we, guys? If you can pull that up on the screen there for the Sunday. Whilst we're having that up. Let's let's move to Sunday Punch, shall we? And for Sunday Punch here, the very first one, PDP chokes. NWC, that's the National Working Committee, suspends Anyanwu Bature Ajibade Osoha over court judgment. And then at the bottom there, party splits as the Amagum Group, Anyanwu Group emerge. You can find that story there for the Sunday Independent. Right next to it, Anambra 2025, all eyes on Joash Amupita. That story is on page 17 of the Sunday Independent as well. Damaturu, the dawn after a long night. You can find that story on page 22 of the Daily Independent. At the top, Wale Adu, CBN governor, reaffirms the federal government's commitment to deep reforms, inclusive growth as well. Bags the CIBN honorary fellowship with CBN deputy governors. You can find that story on the Sunday Independent as well. Just at the bottom there, how citizens can force governments to maintain fiscal accountability, and that's by analysts. And this is very, very important. I think I'm going to take a look at that article there. Right at the bottom, for oil and gas sector, federal government's oil resumption plans in Ogoni face growing resistance. Another very important story there. That's pretty much on all there for the Sunday Independent. Let's move on to our Sunday Punch newspaper. Still with, one of the biggest story now. You can go on social media. Everyone is talking about it on the Sunday Punch there. Trump to Nigeria, stop the killings or face military action. That story there is on page 3. I'm instructing our Department of War to prepare for possible action. If we attack, it will be fast, vicious, and sweet. That's from Trump there. The characterization of Nigeria as religiously intolerant does not reflect our national reality. That statement there is from the President Tinubu. You can find the story on page 5, page 3 of the Sunday Punch. At the top there, power struggle tears PDP apart. NWC, and that's the National Working Committee, splits into factions as convention suffers setback. That story is on page 3. Rumored coup plot I take that back. That's $11 billion. Apologies, I'll take that back. Rumored coup plot, 11 billion naira found in detained colonels' bank accounts. You can find this story on page 6. That's interesting. Right next to it, PDP, NNPP, and CUPP accused Tinubu of forcing defections. World Bank to consider Nigeria's fresh $1 billion loan request. Federal government knows terror sponsors but lacks courage to prosecute. That's from the ex-defense director Olawumi, I beg your pardon. That story there is on page 8 of the Sunday Punch. Ilere Eko, is that it? Ilere, I'm sorry, you gotta help me. What's that?
Ilere Eko, that's it.
Sorry, forgive me. Yeah, my Yoruba socks. And Lagosians growing under heavy medical bills despite insurance cover. That's where it's on page 16 and 17 of the Sunday Punch. My brother abducted, killed by his herbalist friend. And that's from the Delta man. That's where it's on page 27. Lastly, electricity, 10,000 megawatt locked in idle plants, idle plants, says power minister. That's pretty much all for the Sunday Punch.
The next newspaper we're looking at is the Sunday Telegraph. The major headline here is PDP splits as NWC factions suspend each other. Damagum's incompetent. APC receives key leaders of Southern Kaduna. The top left corner is the headline there. Tinubu to Trump. Your characterization not reflective of us. On insecurity, federal government security agencies helpless, says General Williams, retired. A federal government releases 3.3 billion naira to health workers, begins fresh recruitment drive. NLC will resist moves to politicize workers' compensation fund. That story can be found on page 6. A high lending rate, MAN mulls raising funds from capital market. That's from that story can be found on page 6. A Niger local government polls, violence, voter apathy, a mar exercise. That's on page 8 of the Sunday Telegraph. 9 2025. First holdco's gross earnings up 17% to 2.6 trillion naira. On constitutional review, which is one of the major headlines here, North-South demands 31-24 new states. And North Central leads with 13 proposals. Southwest seeks 9 boundary adjustments between Lagos and Ogun. The National Assembly committees to work out modalities. Those are the headlines in the Sunday Telegraph. And I'll move over now to the Nation, Sunday Nation. The major headline here: Tinubu rejects U.S. redesignation of Nigeria as country of concern. That's a big one there. Says nation's constitution protects citizens of all faiths. Trump threatens military action and aid cut. War in PDP, a suspension counter suspension rage. NWC suspends Anyanwu legal advice and others. Wike's loyalists counter suspend Damagum and others. Kaduna South Senator Katun Dom's party joins APC. All of this can be found on page 6 of the Sunday edition of The Nation. On the top left corner, resident doctors begin indefinite nationwide strike over unmet demands. Federal government commenced release of 11.9 billion naira for health workers' arrears. Worry on edge again. Politics reopen old wounds, fault lines. This story can be found on page 19 of the Sunday Nation. There's another headline here talking about Umahi. Days of political marginalization of Southeast gone. This story can be found on page 7. EFCC suspends officer over alleged 10 million naira extortion of rapper. This can be found in page 6. A mockery to global leaders: Nigeria less corrupt than the U.S., European countries. So these are the headlines in The Nation this morning. Of course, the headlines that we can take. Can we just take one more? All right, so we're done with the dailies this morning. But of course, we still have more for you on Breakfast Extra. Up next, we're going to be checking out some interesting expressions in form of cartoons. Stay with us.
It's time for your favorite. It's news strips here on Breakfast Extra. I'm Judith Atibi Chiwete Oyema. He's with me, of course. He's going to be on standby to give all the analysis on the biggest, one of the most exciting editorials, cartoon editorials from major Nigerian newspapers the entirety of the week. They really do capture the major stories. Chiwete, are you geared up? Are you ready?
Yeah, of course, I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it. So we're going to pull up all of the editorials we've picked. We've picked some very nice ones in the entirety of the week. All right, guys, let's pull the first one up on the screen there. There you go. My favorite uncle in the world. Now, see, I got to say, money is the root of all evil, because why are you doing this? Or power. It could be money or power, but who knows? But if you don't know who this is, let me tell you, this is President Paul Biya, who has won at the presidential elections in Cameroon, now making him the seventh time he will be president after, what, 37 years? 47 years, 40. I beg your pardon, 47. Yeah. And this would be his 9th time, 92 years old. He should be retired. He should be in a retirement home. But here he is with his walker attached with a microphone there. And of course, the coat of arms for Cameroon. And there you can see the ladies and gerontocrats, all protocols buried. Love it. And of course, it's from none other than Business Day. Chiwete.
This says everything. You know, it was part of my monologue this morning when I said
stellar monologue, by the way. Absolutely love it.
Thank you so much. But I think there's a problem in Africa, and it's the pattern. It just keeps going, and there's no way. And I remember I asked you that question. I said, which would we even go? Because it looks like if you turn left, we have the option of the military, and when we turn right, there's democracy. But democracy in itself doesn't look like the ones practiced in other countries. We see leaders like Paul Biya, who has been in office since for years. People have been born, people have lived their lives, people have retired, and he is still president. That's a lot. It says a lot about politics in Africa at the moment, but it's really, really sad. We need to do something about it.
The analyst yesterday on the news said something. He said it was successionist governments and dictatorships disguised as democracy, and I couldn't agree more. Let's move on away from this one, shall we? From Business Day to our next cartoon editorial today. This one is also from Business Day as well. You can see the umbrellas at the back there. If you do not know what the umbrella is, I don't know how to help you. But this is a nicely, I have to give shout outs to whoever, I think it's Okpara. Okpara is with the guys, good guys at Business Day. The umbrellas at the end is none other than the PDP. The broom represents the APC. And who you're seeing there scrambling with the money and the trail to get caught by the, what they call those things now, the mouse traps. You can see that it could be, and I interpret this as members of the PDP. Hallelujah. Amen. So they have left the PDP, and you can tell that it's most likely defections. Now, it's hard to tell, but also they paint the same picture, right? It most likely looks like defections because this broom is fashioned as a house, right? So all of them are leaving the PDP. The rats are leaving the PDP, and I hate that it's a rat, but unfortunately, this is what the picture is showing. The rat seems to be leaving the umbrella from that position, which looks like the PDP, and is following this paper trail of what looks like Naira notes on the floor, not knowing that they're getting into a trap. You see that? Now, this is the issue, and analysts, every single analyst have said that the mass defections that we're seeing and the mass carpet crossing that we're seeing would only cause a problem at the end. And they don't see it now. But these, look at this, look at the corner of this, look at this stash, just stacked on this trap, waiting for them to pick it up and they go, whoop, bah.
And they get caught.
See what I said?
So this is, when I look at Nigerian politicians, I tend to wonder, especially when we are quick to compare our democracy with other countries. Most times we usually.
No, this is always young. We're very young.
Exactly, but then we are quick to compare ourselves to the likes of the United States and and the likes. And then in the United States, you see how they run their party system. The Democrats and the Republicans, they have a way they think. The party represents something, and if you're part of the party, it means you agree with that ideology. I don't know what's happening in Nigeria. Right? I don't know what's happening in Nigeria right now in terms of what politicians stand for, if at all, their ideologies are attached to different political parties, because the way people move is quite questionable. I mean, look at, Atiku Abubakar, for instance. In 2015, he was one of those who joined the now Nigerian president, Tinubu, in the APC to take down the PDP, and it worked. And since then, he has left the APC, gone to the PDP, left PDP, went to the APC, now he's back to the PDP. So it's just, now he has even left the PDP, now he's gone to ADC. So I'm just wondering. This
is not a political party, it's a coalition.
Exactly. What is really happening?
But APC at one point was a coalition as well now. So it was a coalition of a major of, I think, 2 or 3 major parties. It used to be AC, Action Congress. But I hear you. I'm trying to serve as a voice of balance. I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong. I'm just having a voice of balance. But hey, I hear you perfectly well. And it's also a case of worry. But one thing that stood out from what you said is that it's very clear that our politicians, all they care about is personal ambitions and power and, prestige, and go to where, when you go to a club and just hear that, there's no more jamming again, they say, let's go. Meanwhile, NDLEA is waiting for you there.
Okay.
Let's move on to the next one, shall we, from the Business Day. The next one we have there now is the Daily Trust. And can I just say that this one really just talks about insecurity. The Daily Trust itself is very, very huge when it comes to talking about the issues of the North. They never leave their thumb is always on the matter every single time. And this one is no different. Boko Haram attacked Angala community in Borno State. That's the title there on the editorial. And you can see what clearly, you may not know who that person is, but when you look at it and from the hat, it somewhat depicts the president. And now you can see the tree itself, and that's it's of course Boko Haram tree. And the axe that first cut it off was none other than the late President Buhari. And then you can see that from the stubble of the tree that was cut off, a fresh one is growing up and is growing stronger. And the wall there, which has cracks and barbed wire, but it's still and very soon the tree will now grow and go over there. It's none other than what seems to be the president, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Very self-explanatory, but Chiwete.
So this one is one thing I know that this particular government, talking about the president's APC administration, has been boasting about is the fact that they've been able to claim some local governments from Boko Haram, that those places have now come back to become Nigeria. The flags of Boko Haram are no longer in these communities. But I think that is in the past. They need to look out for what's happening right now. Things are going out of hand. Like we saw, of course, an attack in Boko Haram, a Boko Haram attack rather in Borno State. It's starting off again. So if the government is not careful, they might get back to where we were, years ago, say 10 years ago, when Boko Haram were actually taking some local governments back. I mean, we're talking about some parts of Nigeria where some people are actually paying tax to these terrorists. So it's a sad situation out there right now. I think this government should face reality. It's beyond just saying things for campaign's sake. Look at the situation and solve it.
It makes you wonder what it would actually take for the government itself to, take a decisive stand and a concerted, a very concerted, strong, united front and say Boko Haram would not live a day more in Nigeria and really go at it. And, I wonder what it would take. I just food for thought. But Chiwete, solid, thank you. Away from Daily Trust now, this one from Daily Trust. Do we have any other ones? I think we have one last one to pull up for you there. Another one as well from the Daily Trust. Talk, talk, talk. You would think it's TikTok. Beyond the edit, the boss, Chiwete's favorite there. And you can see the person's in front driving, which looks like, is this Dino? No, I don't think it is Dino though, but I know that this clearly looks like Atiku Abubakar, the former vice president and the former presidential candidate for the PDP. Also behind him there looks like one on himself, Mr. Peter Obi there, former governor of Anambra State, as well as the former presidential candidate for the Labour Party, who did a big one. He did his big one in 2021 and changed what could have been a two-horseman race to a three-man horseman race, never seen before in our presidential elections. And also by the door there, just looking behind, is, of course, His Excellency, Mr. El-Rufai, Malam El-Rufai. Listen, you can see that the boss is heading into 2027, and behind them seems to be an explosion. The question is, will they arrive at their destination? Chiwete?
That's a very, very big question, because they need to be strategic as to who they bring now. People are already beginning to feel like it's an association of, people that we've seen before.
Unlikely bedfellows.
Exactly. Aside Peter Obi, who, of course, we know what he did in 2023, who somehow he gives this impression of, he's a fresh, face when it comes to presidential race, especially what we saw in 2023. But right now, the ADC looks like a bunch of people who were part of Nigeria's problem within the last 26 years. So I don't know. I'm very skeptical as regards what's going to happen when they decide who will run in 2027. So I think it's for them to decide. It's for them to make it happen for themselves based on decisions that they make in that party.
Right. And the undoing of the PDP as well was also when grievances of people like Mr. Peter Obi, as well as the man who must not be named, the FCT governor, the FCT minister, those were the grievances that fell out during their primaries in 2021. And so what we saw in 2022, I think, forgive me, and what we saw was that the presidential ticket again was given to Abubakar. And now that we're seeing a coalition, it's a question that everyone's asking, who's going to get the ticket in all the stalwarts and heavyweights, not just at their parties, but also nationally, seeing all the positions they've all held and seeing the cloud they all carry and their ambition as well to lead the country. Who will take the presidential candidate and who will take the back seat? Because Atiku refused not to. Same with El-Rufai, he refused to take the back seat. Same with Dino Melaye. So who will? Good question. And will they arrive safely in 2027 with a united front as a coalition? Only time will tell. Pretty much all that we have. Daily Trust. Do we have another one? That's it. I've been informed. That's it. Thank you so much, Chiweta, for that solid analysis. Let's go on a short break. When we come back, we have the news. The breakfast headlines is on standby, and Chiweta will give you all the details after the break. Stay with us.
Still Breakfast Extra, it's time for the news headlines. We begin with security matters, where Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has rejected Nigeria's redesignation as a country of particular concern by U.S. President Donald Trump, insisting that a label misrepresents Nigeria's religious reality. In a statement posted on his official X handle on Saturday, the president said Nigeria stands firmly as a democracy governed by constitutional guarantees of religious liberty, and that the description of the country as religiously intolerant does not reflect our national reality. The post was in response to Trump's declaration of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. Meanwhile, President Trump has again threatened to send U.S. forces into Nigeria with guns blazing if Africa's most populous country does not stem what he described as the killing of Christians. In an explosive post on his Truth Social platform, Trump said he asked the Pentagon to map out a possible plan of attack one day after warning that Christianity was facing an existential threat in Nigeria. Trump said if the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria. The U.S. president said he has instructed the Department of War to prepare for possible action. He ended his post with a warning that the Nigerian government better move fast. Now to Niger State, where a collation of results is underway in the Niger State following the November 1st local government elections. Elections faced criticism due to delays caused by the late arrival of sensitive materials, leading to a low voter turnout in some areas. Some residents also reported being unable to vote due to time constraints. Additionally, there were allegations of voter inducement by party agents, raising concerns over the fairness of the process. The coalition of united political parties has commended President Tinubu's administration for what it describes as remarkable progress in road infrastructure across the country. A statement issued by its national spokesperson, Mark Adebayo, the coalition acknowledged the positive strides made following an independent inspection tour in Abuja. CUPP praised the ongoing road projects, highlighting key routes such as the Abuja-Kaduna-Zaria-Kano Expressway, the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, and the Benin-Shagamu-Ore Road, amongst others. The coalition also lauded Minister of Works, Senator David Umahi, for his hands-on approach to project oversight, emphasizing his frequent site visits and results-driven leadership style.
We have come here to see for ourselves. This one is no longer a newspaper report. All the places we have gone, we saw the things they are doing, and at least we can now confidently say that the kind of road they are doing, the quality of the roads. When the minister said they are building roads that will last for 100 years, some of us were laughing, thought that what was talking about, this is not Nigeria roads, that within 3 months everything is coming. But considering the kind of things they are doing, the materials, the iron, the concrete mixture and everything that they are doing, is incredible. It's a great work. We know that this road will last for a very, very, very long time to come. We can only commend the minister, but more importantly, let's commend his principal, the president, for putting a round peg in a round hole. And it's not that the man doesn't even stay in office. You see him everywhere. I think one of the reasons why we didn't want to go to this Abuja-Kaduna Kano road is because the man is there now. And we don't want anybody to say that we are part of the entourage of the minister. We are doing our own independent something. He's doing a wonderful job, and I think this is a commendable work, as we can, all of us have confirmed.
Moving on now to East Africa. At least 21 people have been confirmed dead and more than 30 remain missing after a landslide triggered by heavy rains in Marakwet East, western Kenya on Saturday. Search and rescue operations were temporarily halted overnight as efforts to reach affected areas faced challenges due to flooding and blocked routes. Aerial images shared by the Kenyan Red Cross revealed widespread mudslides and flash flooding. The organization is coordinating rescue efforts with the government, including air evacuations for the injured. And that's all we have for you at this time. My name is Chiweta Onyema. Breakfast Extra continues.
Let's begin our second hour here on Breakfast Extra with our big story for this morning. It's on a headline that has grabbed international attention. The U.S. government has announced that it will designate Nigeria as a country of particular concern under the International Religious Freedom Act. Prominent voices in the United States say this move signals not only serious concerns over religious violence in Nigeria, but also opens the door for sanctions and a reshaping of diplomatic ties.
Joining us to unpack the implications are Ikechukwu Amechi, editor, Niche, a newspaper, and public affairs analyst, and Collins Weke, a foreign affairs analyst. Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome to the program. Unfortunately,
thank you, Judith.
Thank you. Unfortunately, Mr. Ikechukwu Amechi isn't with us at this time, but he will join us concurrently during the course of the program. Mr. Collins, very interesting turn of events for Nigeria and the United States at this time. Well, first of all, what do you make of this move by the United States deeming Nigeria as a country of great concern?
Thank you, Judith. Thank you, Chiweta, for having me. Well, I think I've been pretty consistent in my position about this. There is no genocide in Nigeria. I thought it is important to be unequivocal about that. Well, the United States thinks differently, and I just re-elevated Nigeria to the top tier of religious freedom concern. They moved, like you mentioned, that President Trump just a couple of days ago, I believe, announced under U.S.'s, International Religious Freedom Act law. Now, a CPC label is serious, dead serious, not because it instantly triggers sanctions, but because it puts Nigeria under sharper diplomatic and investor scrutiny. And, it can lead to penalties as well, unless Washington grants a waiver. Now, what are the indications that, that waiver is going to be granted? Well, not very much, because if anything, Trump has actually threatened that, there's going to be military actions. Now, you begin to ask yourself, where is the consistency in action here? You want to take a military action that could, in fact, that will definitely result in more deaths of both Christians and Muslims, the same Christian, the same population that you claim to be, protecting. So there is a need to ask deeper questions in terms of what America's real target is, what their real interest is. Now, we have seen from, President Trump's body language and his actions, that he is a guy of, transactional diplomacy. So which means that he twists countries' hands, and by doing so, put them in a tight corner and get them to, make tariff or trade, concessions that, are actually in America's best interest. I think the time has come to look in that direction to actually see the extent to which, Trump really is concerned about Christians in Nigeria, rather than actually, pushing for America's, interest, using Christian genocide as an excuse to achieve that.
So, Mr. Collins, if you're to describe what this designation means, would you say it's coming from a place of, selective, politicking per se?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what I would say, because for a country, like Nigeria, battling layered insecurity, this is a moment for facts, engagement, and reform. And frankly, it's also the price of diplomatic, absenteeism when Nigeria, since 2023, have not had, substantive, ambassadors in their posts. Now, coming to the issue of, selective politicking, well, there is absolutely no doubt that the United States has made Nigeria a target in this specific case. I do not want to speculate, but obviously, America, has its eye on something. It could be, a solid mineral somewhere up north, which the present government is actually not giving them access to. And now they are trying to, look for whatever excuse or the other to be able to, assess it by all means possible. So at this point, you can't rule anything out. And, quite apart from the fact that Nigeria has, left their embassies on man, there are indications of consistency in foreign policy in terms of actually knowing what they want, going for it in a very, very bullish manner. America just doesn't like that. Okay. And so, they now appear to want to achieve what they cannot achieve politically through, selective politicking.
All right. Now, we've been informed that Mr. Ikechukwu Amechi has just joined us. He's the editor for the Niche newspaper, as well as a public affairs analyst and a friend of the House. Mr. Amechi, thank you so much for joining us, and a very good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So, now, before you joined us, our guest here, Mr. Collins Enrique, he asserted that, based on his own, understanding of this whole, turn of events, that there isn't any Christian genocide per se, and that, this move by the U.S., it has more undertones than it seems to meet the eyes. And knowing the body language of President Trump and his administration, this opens a table for a transactional diplomacy, and saying that Nigeria has left there's diplomacy open, international diplomacy open, with the vacancies of ambassadors across its embassies around the world. What is your own assessment of this designation of Nigeria as a country of great concern? And do you agree with Mr. Enrique?
Well, it's not. No answer is going to do justice to the situation we have on our hands right now. It's easy to talk like Mr. Enrique is talking from, in quote, patriotic viewpoint, to say Trump transactional politics, and that he wants to exert pressure on Nigeria so as to bring Nigeria to the negotiation table for whatever he wants to do. That may be right. But then, we lose sight of certain fundamentals in this country. I don't know if you remember that in 2014, before APC came to power, part of the things they did to pressure the Jonathan government was a visit to the United States. On that visit was our former president-elect Muhammadu Buhari, the current president Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the former governor of Edo State, Oyegu, and the former Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi. They met with the then U.S. Secretary of State, John Kerry. And part of what they did was to go and persuade the United States government to blacklist Nigeria. President Bola Tinubu was once quoted as saying that the slaughtering of Christians in Nigeria was getting out of hand and that Jonathan was not doing anything about it. Now, the table has turned. But having said all this, you see, let us ask ourselves the question, is there a deliberate killing of Christians in the north, which is what this is all about? Is Trump justified in declaring Nigeria a country of particular concern, CPC, because of the alleged persecution of Christians in Nigeria? The answer, again, like I said, depends on who you talk to. As Southerners, those of us living here, we could sit down in our comfort zones and say, no, there is no targeting of Christians in the north. But can people in Plateau State, can the communities that are being wiped out in Benue State, can they say the same? The answer is definitely no. You know, unfortunately, many of these areas, whether it is Benue, Plateau State, Nasarawa, they have predominance of Christians. So even if the attack is not necessarily to eliminate Christians, the victims are most times 99% Christians. So how do you explain that away? How do you explain that how many months ago, more than 200 people were killed in Yelwata, in Benue State? And almost 99% of them, if not 100% of them, were Christians. How do you explain the fact that all the girls that were taken from Nachibok, girls secondary school, was it in 2014, that almost 99% of them were Christians? How do you justify what is going on in southern Kaduna? But the most annoying part is that what is the government doing to stop all these killings?
And that's what I'm going to get into, Mr. Mechi. And I want to ask you, not just stopping the killings, but also the body language from President Trump. He has somewhat threatened action on the country if no concerted efforts are made to stop the genocide. And then Mr. Wike says given how Trump moves, there could be a room for transactional diplomacy at this point. Is the U.S. looking for something? And so this is a Trojan horse, using the lives of those who have been persecuted due to their religion as a Trojan horse to get what they want: mineral resources, mines, gold, uranium. Your take?
Even if that is the case, even when we admit that Trump's presidency is too transactional for anybody's liking, the truth of the matter is that people are being killed in Nigeria. Therefore, we have created this condition that is necessary for him to come and pontificate. If people are not being killed the way and manner they are being slaughtered, then Trump wouldn't have had any justification. The question we need to ask ourselves before we start going off tangent and talking about what Trump has done, what he has not done, is that our people being killed in Nigeria. Nigeria is about the only country that is not in a war, literally, that you wake up in the morning and 200 people are slaughtered, and at the end of the day, nothing happens. When Buhari was the president, he said that people should go and reconcile with their neighbors. What has Tinubu done to ensure that we put an end to all these killings? After every killing, people we just come up with all this rhetoric, we need to live in peace. How do you live in peace with people who are killing you? Judith, go and check how many people are living in IDP camps in Benue State. The places they left, the ancestral homes from which they were chased out, go and check. Are those ancestral homes being occupied by people? Who are those people occupying them? And how do you tell people who have been chased away from their ancestral homes, who are living in IDP camps, and other people are now occupying their ancestral homes, how do you tell them that what is going on is not ethnic cleansing, is not genocidal? And the primary responsibility of any government is the protection of lives and property of the citizenry. Any government that cannot protect the lives of the people, every day we are burying people in mass graves. It is a shame. It is a shame that as a country, we have normalized these killings as if it does not matter. And like I said earlier, it is when you are not involved, when you meet people who are actually victims of these evil deeds, you will weep now for this country. We were here in this country when, how many years ago, a young lady, Deborah, was stoned to death in broad daylight, and her corpse was set ablaze. What happened? Who was tried?
I'm saying, let me. So I need to just interject at this point, but I want to come to you, Mr. Collins, at this point in time. What does this mean for Nigeria, especially our the impact in Nigeria as regards our reputation in Africa, being that we're key players in ECOWAS, Sahel, security architecture. We're very, very active when it comes to peacekeeping in the continent of Africa. But what with this statement coming from the President of the United States of America, what does this mean for us as how we're going to be seen in Africa?
Well, it doesn't look good on Nigeria. CPC as a designation can complicate licenses, training, and some security assistance. And it spoke capital at a time Nigeria needs foreign exchange, foreign direct investment, and stable risk premiums. Transparency plus action plan are really the antidote. Now, this is something Nigeria, should wish for. And let me be clear about something, because we need to balance narratives with data. I heard, Mr. Amechi actually throw some percentages around, mounting up to 99%. I think it's important, to make one acknowledgement, and that is that violence in Nigeria is real and unacceptable, but, it is multi-causal and not confined to one faith community. That fact has been, proven to be accurate with data, not just, word of mouth. Precision matters to avoid policy overreach that harms, civilian communities and security, cooperation. And I believe that the crux of the matter now is not what Trump is doing or not doing, because yes, I agree with Mr. Amechi that let us take the worst case scenario that the United States, has its eyes on certain minerals. Well, we have, as a country, we have to, ask ourselves, how best do we manage this? Do we manage this by, taking denial to mean diplomacy, or going silent when we should be, having a loud microphone in front of us? These are the critical
Mr. Collins, I'm
questions.
sorry, I'll just have to interject at this point in time, and that's because we need to go on a quick break. When we return, the conversation continues.
Thank you.
And welcome back. You're watching Breakfast Extra here on News Central Television. We're discussing the label from the United States on Nigeria, deeming the country as a country of particular concern, CPC. And with us, we have two guests. First, foreign affairs analyst Collins Nwike, who joins us virtually. Also joining us is Ikechukwu Amechi. The editor, Niche newspaper, as well as a public affairs analyst. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being on standby. Now, before the break, we were talking about, our standpoint for Nigeria, seeing how very involved we are, not just with ECOWAS, being leaders of the sub-regional bloc ECOWAS, but also being a voice of reason in the Sahel region and a country that has grandstanding in the Sahel region. And seeing this label on us is very concerning. Mr. Wike, I want you to finish your thoughts, because I know we had to cut you off. And when we finish, I want to come to Mr. Ikechukwu.
Thank you, Judith. Well, like I said earlier, this doesn't look good on Nigeria. Nigeria has been looked upon as, the big brother in Africa, providing leadership. I mean, President Tinubu immediately on assuming office, took on the position of, the leadership of ECOWAS. Of course, there were some flip-flop here and there, but he gathered, himself together and, provided them, great leadership that then he handed over to Mr. Bayo. Now, the point is that Nigeria has not been quite good in managing this narrative. I mean, where they ought to be speaking out, they have, stayed silent. And I believe that since this doesn't rub off well on them, particularly in the ECOWAS region, this can only be managed through, consistent, communication, very, very strategic. Besides that, there are a number of actions that they need to take to actually, maintain that credibility as a leading force in Africa. For a start, Nigeria needs to appoint ambassadors promptly. It cannot be that, you don't have ambassadors, because no ambassadors means no voice. Then I think it is critically important to launch a joint Nigeria-US working group on religious freedom and atrocity prevention. This is particularly important because, the two countries have got to start communicating on this matter. And then equally important is, publication of quarterly verifiable metrics on investigations and prosecutions, because if you don't do that, then you allow, figures to, be flying around. For instance, 99% of Christians being killed somewhere when we do not have evidence to back that up. So Nigeria needs to, launch that verifiable metrics, publish it, and then they need to expand victim support and early warning in a number of hotspots. Because that is the only way, to prove that as Christians are being killed, Muslims are being killed as well, and even traditional, religious worshippers. So these are four clear pathways that Nigeria must, mark out and follow in order to maintain its credibility in the sub-region, ECOWAS, African Union, but also internationally, with the propensity that the legislators in the United States who are somewhere in the middle, who do not agree totally with Trump, but have lacked the evidence they require to be able to support Nigeria. This, this is the kind of thing they want to see to be able to stand firm, with Nigeria. Now, let's not make one mistake, and that is the mistake of thinking that in 2020, under this same Donald Trump, Nigeria was classified as such. When Biden came in, they reviewed it and took Nigeria out of that CPC list. Now, who came back again and put Nigeria back on that list? It is the same transactional Trump. So, you see, these things don't just, there are no coincidences here. Nigeria is simply a target. But am I exonerating the Nigerian government? No. There are things they ought to have done, low-hanging fruits, that they simply didn't do. And, that has to change.
Okay. So, Wike, I must state this here, right? And I think it's very important that we put this out on the table. As media, we have had issues to go into affected regions where we have seen numbers. Church comes to mind, Plateau comes to mind. As far back as 1999, the Southern Kaduna also comes to mind. Also, you have to understand that our system, when it comes to data, has always been opaque. And that's only because the media and the authorities who are supposed to go in there, all the organizations who are supposed to get in there to tally those numbers, have issues going there. Right, and so if we need to have the proper data, we might be playing I don't know, ball for a long time before we ever get to the finish line, because it would take a while. And so I have to state that there. And I know there are some persons who have been doing the work and who are still doing the work in going and finding and uncovering stories of persons who have been targeted and communities that have been raised down, and questions of whether or not it's their religion or their ethnicity. But one thing is certain, these are happening. So with that being said, I'm going to give Mr. Ikechukwu a right of reply, but also ask about the government's response. Now, we know that as of yesterday, the presidency has put out a statement, and there has been reactions to that statement as well. And it's been on the split side. One is saying, the response from Nigeria is very weak, not too much going on there. While others have said at least he did put out a statement. You can see that statement right there on the screen. And at the bottom there, the second paragraph there goes on to say, religious freedom and tolerance have been a core tenet of our collective identity and should always remain so. Nigeria opposes religious persecution and does not encourage it. Nigeria is a country with constitutional guarantees to protect citizens of all faiths. Mr. Ikechukwu, is this true?
Well, Judith, like I said earlier, but before I even comment, let me also react to what Mr. Wike said. I wasn't throwing up figures just like that. I was specific. I said Chibok girls, super majority of them were Christians, and that is a fact. Over 90% of the Chibok girls were Christians. The people being slaughtered in Plateau State, there may be other extraneous reasons for the killings, but incidentally, those places are predominantly Christian communities. So again, I am right, and I need to be disproved by anybody. So I was specific when I made the comment. I wasn't talking about Zamfara. I wasn't talking about Katsina, where you have predominantly Muslim communities. So, but that said, look, Judy, there is nothing anybody can say. What do we do? We need to put our house in order. This is not about Trump. We are the people who have given Trump this
ammunition,
opportunity to insult us, if this is insult. But the truth of the matter is that we've not been able to put our...
Can we put our house in order? Can we put our house in order?
Hello?
I said, can we put our house in order?
That is a big question to ask. And the person who should answer that question is the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria.
I mean, we just reshuffled. We just did a reshuffle, and new service chief heads have been appointed, screened and appointed at the highest level. Is there hope on the horizon? Is there a new dawn coming? Given their body language and the promises made on the floor of the legislature?
We have always had these promises. When Tinubu came into office and, of course, appointed General Musa and others, that was the same promise that was made. We can't live on promise alone. There must be reality. Those promises must be translated to concrete actions that will stop people from being slaughtered. Judith, look, you've not been to Plateau State. I've been to these places. I was in Maiduguri when the Haram thing started, shortly after the killing of Mohammed Yusuf. And you see the way people are slaughtered like animals. People sleeping on their beds, and they are not sure, and they won't wake up the following morning. The bestiality that is involved in all this. You ask yourself, are we human beings at all?
Mr. Mechi, I'm sure you're more than, of course, you want to answer Judith's question, and of course, we also love to hear your response. But right now, we just need to pause on the conversation and go on a quick break. That's right. We'll be right back. So Breakfast Extra, of course, we're having a conversation as regards the U.S. President designating Nigeria as a country of particular concern. We still have Mr. Ikechukwu Amechi here and Mr. Collins Wike. Gentlemen, we're about to wrap up this conversation, but please, your final thoughts.
Well, for me, one key question, keeps cropping up, and that is the question of if Nigeria had ambassadors, could this, have been prevented? Possibly mitigated, but certainly not, guaranteed. One point we need to understand is this. Diplomacy doesn't erase facts, but it shapes outcome. And so for me, Nigeria needs to start from there. And as closing remark, I just want to say that Nigeria must treat this, CPC moment as a policy audit, not a political, insult. The way forward is swift diplomatic re-engagement, visible protection of all communities, and verifiable justice against perpetrators. If we staff our diplomacy, clean up our data, and deliver on reforms, Washington has the legal room to waive punitive measures. Not to talk of, military action. This is how we de-risk Nigeria while upholding the dignity and safety of every Nigerian. There are no two ways around it.
There are no two ways around it. But you also said that knowing Trump and his administration, one thing that is at the forefront is transactional diplomacy. If he gets what he wants, could it be at the cost of human lives, Mr. Amechi?
It will certainly be at the cost of human life. But the point is that you wouldn't, if Nigeria acts correctly, if Nigeria acts right, you wouldn't place Donald Trump in the position where he gets to getting what he needs, because he will be prevented by well-meaning legislators, both in the Capitol Hill and in the State Department, who will believe Nigeria's data, Nigeria's actions in protecting every community, every religious community. Once that happens, they will make, they will make it very, very difficult, if not impossible, for Donald Trump to, achieve his goal of, transactional diplomacy.
Mr. Mechi, please go ahead.
Yes, the point I want to make, again, let me agree with Mr. Wike that we need to clean up our system. But that said, look, you asked him the question earlier of the implication of this designation as a country of particular concern. The implication is huge. It can come with economic sanctions, some policy measures, and Nigeria is not in a position now to withstand any form of withholding of aids or economic sanctions. So we must do everything within our powers to ensure that we get out of that list. And all I'm saying is that, in fact, if you ask me, I would say what Donald Trump is doing, I don't see him not coming to attack Nigeria. But what he's doing, I would say, is nudging our governments to do the needful. When he says stop killing, whether it is Christians who are being killed or Muslims that are being killed or enemies that are being killed, the truth of the matter is that Nigerians are dying unnecessary deaths in the hands of bandits, in the hands of terrorists, very unnecessary deaths. Can we stop these killings? And it behoves, if he is nudging us to stop these killings, it doesn't matter who is being killed. Whether it is a Muslim or it is a Christian, every death diminishes all of us. So it behoves the government to walk its talk. What I have seen is that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu does not have the political will to do the needful. He is not doing anything to prevent this acts of violence. He said he was going to continue from where President Muhammadu Buhari stopped. And that is exactly what he's doing. Buhari never did anything to mitigate this disaster. It is a shame. Tell me any other country in the world where people are being killed unnecessarily as they are being killed in Nigeria, not even in Gaza, that is fighting an active war. You wake up in the morning and 200 people are slaughtered in their sleep. And I'm using this word deliberately, slaughtered. I'm not saying being killed, they are being slaughtered. Because that is how they are being killed. And we pretend as if nothing is going on. The president will be traveling. He won't even visit to empathize. When he was eventually persuaded to go to Benue State, he didn't even go to the community where people were grieving. Instead, the state governor arranged for students to line up in the rain to give him a heroic welcome in a situation that ought to have compared solemn and somber disposition. So it is not about Donald Trump. We are missing the point when we talk about Donald Trump and his transnational diplomacy. We must, for our own sake, because it is a shame, we must stop these killings. And it is the responsibility of the government to guarantee the lives and safety of the citizenry. Whatever it is, we must stop this killing. That is where the issue is. It's not about Donald Trump. I'm not here this morning to quarrel with Donald Trump.
Right.
If we do not make our country as unsafe as it is today, I'm not too sure that a Donald Trump will be insulting us, because this is an insult to all Nigerians. And the only way to remove this insult is to do the needful. Stop these killings.
And the killings have to stop indeed. Gentlemen, I must say thank you for taking out your time this morning to join us for this very needed discussion. Now, all eyes are on the presidency as well to see what the next move will be. Now, a lot of gaps have been identified here. The absence of ambassadors at different Nigerian embassies across the world, as well as the fact that, you know, whether we like it or not, there are killings happening in flashpoint areas like the Middle Belt as well as Southern Kaduna. And also, all lives must be protected, whether being targeted for their religion, their ethnicity. The most important thing is Nigerian lives are being targeted, and something must be done. And their response to this has to be timely. Gentlemen, once again, thank you. Mr. Collins Nwike, Global Affairs Analyst, as well as Mr. Ikechukwu Amechi, who is the editor with Niche Newspaper and Public Affairs Analyst. Pretty much all we can discuss at this time. Let's go on a short break, shall we? We bring you the news at the top of the hour, and afterwards we wrap up the show for the last hour. Stay with us.
Hello and welcome to Breakfast Headlines. I am Chiwate Onyema. Beginning with security matters, where Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has rejected Nigeria's redesignation as a country of particular concern by U.S. President Donald Trump, insisting that a label misrepresents Nigeria's religious reality. In a statement posted on his X handle on Saturday, the president said Nigeria stands firmly as a democracy governed by constitutional guarantees of religious liberty, and that the description of the country as religiously intolerant does not reflect our national reality. The post was in response to Trump's declaration of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has again threatened to send U.S. forces into Nigeria with guns blazing if Africa's most populous country does not stem from what he described as the killing of Christians. In an explosive post on his Truth Social platform, Trump said he asked the Pentagon to map out a possible plan of attack, one day after warning that Christianity was facing an existential threat in Nigeria. Trump said if the Nigerian government continues to allow the killings of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria. The U.S. president said he has instructed the Department of War to prepare for possible action. He ended his post with a warning that the Nigerian government better move fast. Now, talking politics, the crisis in Nigeria's opposition party, the People's Democratic Party, has taken a turn for the worse as a factional loyal to the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has suspended the acting national chairman of the party, Ilia Damagum. The national secretary of the party, Samuel Anyanwu, says that the suspension has become necessary for a briefing newsman in Abuja. Anyanwu announced the party's national vice chairman, North Central, Mohammed Abdulrahman, as the acting national chairman.
Decided as a party to suspend Ambassador Ilia Umadamagu, the national chairman of the party, for incompetence. For incompetence, misappropriation of party funds, and disobedience, flagrant disobedience of court judgments, both pending and the ones the judgment. For instance, against the legal advice of the national legal advisor of the party. On that note, we decided that we should suspend him for 1 month, and we'll send him to the study committee for him to be able to answer such questions pending the time he serves of his suspension.
From there, we'll now move on to Niger State, where a collation of results is underway following the November 1st local government elections. The elections have faced criticism due to delays caused by the late arrival of sensitive materials and leading to a low voter turnout in some areas. Some residents also reported being unable to vote due to time constraints. Additionally, there were allegations of voter inducement by party agents, raising concerns over the fairness of the process. In East Africa, at least 21 people have been confirmed dead, as more than 30 remain missing after a landslide triggered by heavy rains in Marakwet, western Kenya on Saturday. Search and rescue operations were temporarily halted overnight as efforts to reach affected areas faced challenges due to flooding and blocked routes. Aerial images shared by the Kenyan Red Cross revealed widespread mudslides and flash flooding. The organization is coordinating rescue efforts with the government, including air evacuations for the injured. Let's now talk about electoral matters. Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan has condemned nationwide protests following her declared victory in an election that gave her nearly 98% of the vote. Opposition groups allege that hundreds have been killed by security forces amid a heavy crackdown and widespread unrest. The Electoral Commission reported a turnout of 87%, though observers and journalists described largely empty polling stations. The opposition party, Chadema, dismissed the result as a mockery of democracy, calling for new elections.
Moja na manufaa hayo au matukio hayo mazuri yaliyotokea ndani ya uchaguzi wetu, kuna matukio ya uvunjifu wa amani yaliyofanywa siku ya uchaguzi, lengo likiwa ni kuharibu au kuzuia uchaguzi usifanyike. Tunavishukuru sana vyombo vya ulinzi na usalama kwa kuhakikisha kwamba vurugu zilizotokea hazikuathiri au kusimamisha uchaguzi. Matukio yale yaliyofanywa maeneo hasa kwenye miji ya Dar es Salaam, Arusha, Mwanza na Mbeya na Songwe, kwa vyovyote vile hayakuwa yakiungwa mkono, hayakuwa yakiungwana na ya kizalendo.
And that's all I have for you at this time. My name is Chiwete Onyema. Breakfast Extra continues.
And you're welcome back. It's still Breakfast Extra here on News Central Television. It's time for us to switch gears. We begin our last hour of the show this morning on wellness. It's time for Wellness Central. It's where we spotlight on the health issues that matter most to Nigerians. Now, last month, October, we celebrated Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's a month that is set aside to raise awareness about breast cancer, and where we realized that there is a growing concern about the rising number of cases in Nigeria. Now, despite more awareness campaigns and screenings, late detection, as well as poor access to care and the high cost of treatment continue to drive mortality rates, especially among women in low-income communities.
So to help us unpack why survival rates remain low and what can be done differently, we have Dr. Owen Omojo, a public health expert, join us this morning. Good morning, Doctor, and thank you so much for being here.
And also the future Minister of Health,
and Women Affairs. It meant that a big
Doctor, you're welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, looking at the big picture, I mean, why is breast cancer still claiming so many lives? I mean, over the years, this is not the first time, not the second time. We've had campaigns over the years, but the situation is still there, staring us in the face. Why?
So we're talking about the Nigerian context.
Yeah.
And so breast cancer continues to claim more lives every year. About half of the cases of breast cancer end up in death, right? So that's how stark the statistics are. And the simple one-line answer to that would be late detection. Late detection, and that is why a lot of campaigns around breast cancer focus on awareness and early detection. Most cases, and let me just state that the data on breast cancer is still quite sparse, right? So the reporting, the incidence rates of breast cancer is quite sparse. However, with the data that we do have around incidence, there is a clear pattern of late presentation. So most cases of breast cancer present in the late stages, so stage 3 and stage 4. And at that stage, that is where it is the treatment options are limited. it is more difficult to manage in that situation, and that is why the 5-year survival rate in Nigeria is anywhere between 30 to 40%, right? So at least 26 to 27 of women, 26 to 27 out of 100,000 women that are diagnosed with breast cancer will die. So at the crux of it is late detection, because women are presenting later in late stages, stage 3 and stage 4. And so when you compare the statistics with those of developed countries, you'd see that the survival rate is anywhere between, the 5-year survival rate is anywhere between 70 to 80%, because women are presenting early in stage 1, stage 2, and they have access to more affordable healthcare that will allow them to have the proper diagnosis and the proper treatment as well. Again, we simply do not have enough treatment centers for breast cancer. Whilst we have, so Nigeria has the National Cancer Health Fund, right? It is a government initiative that is co-funded by Federal Ministry of Health, the National Cancer Research Institute, and private partners as well. And the National Cancer Health Fund is supposed to help patients with breast cancer, cervical cancer, and prostate cancer, which are some of the most common cancers in Nigeria, patients to get treatment for up to 2 million naira. But again, it is not well funded still, because there are not a lot of private partners that are involved in this process. And we know the Nigerian situation, so it's almost like every government initiative, right? We always have an issue with implementation. So yes, there's a website, yes, there's information access and all of that, but it is not well utilized. Again, even with that fund, we still have more people. The mainstay of healthcare expenditure is out-of-pocket expenditure, which I dare say is catastrophic. And so when a woman has to make a choice between catering to her basic survival needs, food, shelter, and paying to go get screened for breast cancer, you bet she's going to cater to her basic survival needs, right? So we don't have enough people in the health insurance net, and so women are prioritizing other basic needs rather than this, and so they are not getting screened, they're not, right. And then again, finally, we don't have enough, diagnostic centers that are spread across underserved populations or underserved communities. And for a country of over 200 million people, we only have about 10 specialist radiation therapy centers, right? And that is wildly inadequate to serve the population. If we're getting about 32,000 cases of breast cancer annually, and we only have about 10 to serve this population, it is wildly, insufficient. And so these are some of the issues that I believe contribute to the high mortality rate.
What about the cultural aspect as well? What about norms, cultural norms and beliefs that have continued to, widen the barrier between, women going in for early detection and, treatment? Absolutely.
So that speaks to the lack of awareness, which is what a lot of private institutions and organizations like the organization that I run, HIJC Health Consultants, and a lot of banks, and private organizations that do breast cancer awareness campaigns. One of the things that we focus on is debunking those myths, right? That breast cancer is not a curse, it's not a spiritual attack, things like that. So there are those cultural myths around breast cancer that inhibits people from going to get tested and all of that. So yes, absolutely, it definitely plays a role. And that is why taking it further in terms of awareness, can we take breast cancer awareness down to the grassroots, to primary health care, tying in community health extension workers who are the closest health workers to the people at the grassroots, right? So when I say taking it down to them, it's empowering the community health extension workers, upskilling them, training them and teaching them, sort of making them cancer champions, you know, cancer awareness champions, or in this case, breast cancer awareness champions, right? And also teaching them how to do breast examination and teach self-breast examination as well. So at the primary healthcare level, doing that, and then also including breast cancer screening as part of the National Health Insurance Authority plans, right? Even though we still have less than 10% of people, 10% of Nigerians under health insurance coverage, I think a step in the right direction would be to actually include breast cancer screening as part of the plan benefits under the National Health Insurance Authority plans, which then cascades to the state health insurance plans. And now our public health professionals in Nigeria are even now advocating for that to transcend to the local government level, because the local government is the closest to the people. And with the local government financial autonomy now, they're able to key into health insurance, and being that they're closest to the people, they know the psychology of the people that they serve, and so they're able to get more people into that net. Because listen, if we continue in this trend of out-of-pocket expenditure, I'm sorry, we're not going to get very far. People are always going to prioritize basic survival needs over healthcare.
Especially with the public health centers that are scattered across the different local government areas. I think about 774. Hence why I said she's a future minister of health. I told you.
Well, tell us about the age bracket. Is there an age bracket that's more prone to, you know, suffering from breast cancer?
Well, in terms of risk factors, yes, being over the age of 40 predisposes women to having developing breast cancer, but there are other risk factors. For example, having the BRCA1 and BRCA2, so BRCA breast cancer gene mutations, being of African descent, believe it or not. And I say that because African women have denser breast tissue. And so when you have denser breast tissue, that also predisposes. It's a known, or it's a studied risk factor. And of course, there are other risk factors: not having born a child, or carried a pregnancy, or not had childbirth, early menarche, late menopause, or early menarche, starting girls that start their period before the age of 12. And late menopause, women who have menopause after the age of 55 years as well, that predisposes them. And then, of course, lifestyle changes, you know, obese, excess alcohol consumption, being exposed to harmful chemicals, which that also puts women at risk. And because we're speaking in the Nigerian context, women of Africa, I know that we advocate for women above the age of 40 to get mammogram annually, but we also know that mammogram is expensive. And since African women have more dense tissue, we have now started to advocate for women above the age of 40, or women who have a positive family history, because it is tied to family history as well. If you've had a like mom or grandmother in your family has had breast cancer in the past, and for those women, we advocate that earlier, maybe from the age of 30 upwards, they get a breast ultrasound scan at least once a year. Breast ultrasound, of course, is more affordable. It exposes you to no radiation, and it is actually able to detect breast tumors better than mammogram for dense breast tissue, right? So it is advisable for Nigerian men to get a breast ultrasound scan. But beyond that, self-breast examination, which is one of the things that we advocated for when we had our breast cancer awareness program, HIGC, last 2 weeks. That's one of the things that, we taught the women who participated, self-breast examination, and then again, going for screening. And one of the first things in screening is getting your breast examined by a health professional. So yeah, those are.
Are there preventative measures or preventative tactics that a woman might take, before just early detection or yearly screening? Just because I know about there are issues of hereditary as well that can play into it. There are persons who believe that when you breastfeed, you can get breast cancer. It is endless. So help us demystify all of that.
Well, so the only way to prevent breast cancer is to have a complete double mastectomy. So take out your breast complete. That's the only way to prevent it.
See?
That's the only way that you can prevent breast cancer. And even at that, if it's not done by a skilled surgeon where they leave some residual, breast tissue, you could still, so really there's really no way to prevent breast cancer. It is still about awareness and understanding what the risk factors are, which I have already talked about. And when you know that somebody from your family, has had breast cancer, that puts you at risk, and so you're more conscious about these things. So again, it goes back to awareness and self-breast examination, knowing what to look out for. If you develop a lump, or if you see that your nipples are inverted, or there's something called peau d'orange, so which is orange peel. So when you see that your breast has like an orange peel, and I mean, it's not just for the ladies.
The men as well.
The lady sounds like peau d'orange is something quite luxurious.
Because it's in French. Yeah, language sounds.
Peau d'orange.
Yeah.
Say it.
Peau d'orange.
Say it to this.
Coup d'orange.
Peau.
Oh, peau d'orange.
Ah,
so peau d'orange, skin of an orange.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, it took me long enough.
So orange peel. And so if you notice that on your babe, right? Like you notice that your babe's breast, and I'm saying it for the men as well, because sometimes it's the partner who actually notices that there is a change in the
texture.
Breast, in the texture. So most people would, the first thing that would be a telltale sign first would be a lump that they discover, right? And a lot of times it actually happens where it's the partner that discovers it. Of course, pain in the breast, discharge when you're not breastfeeding, you start having milky discharge. Of course, that could be a sign of other things, but it's also a major sign of breast cancer, discharge, whether it's milky discharge or bloody discharge. Those are some of the things that you want to be looking out for.
What about age?
Age
as well.
So being above the age of 40 is also one of the risk things that could, one of the risk factors.
So the older you get, women. It's always something, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I hear from men too, but numbers is a little, right? So should men be checking, or we should just forget about it?
So the incidence in men is just about 1% of cases. So I think men have a lot more things to worry about, like prostate cancer, colorectal cancer, and things like that. But yes, there is the risk as well. So you can, self-examine your breast. But
All right. Let's quickly go on a short break, shall we? When we return, we're going to be talking about advances and just solutions, especially both at the local government level as well as ourselves. After the break, stay with us. And welcome back here for our Wellness Center. With us is Dr. Owen Omojo. She is a public health expert and also the future Minister of Health and Women Affairs in Nigeria. Now, we're talking about breast cancer awareness, as October was Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Now, we've been talking about risk factors, we're talking about age, we're talking about why the numbers keep increasing and why more women are dying in spite of efforts when it comes to raising awareness about the disease. But before we round up this hour, I would like to have the final remarks on solutions, both at government level, state, local level, as well as private individuals as well. Doctor, how can we, bring the numbers down? What more can we do? Is this economy? Is it health plans? Is it, what are the, I feel like it's a concoction of a number of things to make it work, Doctor.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks to News Central TV for doing this, because this is a step in the right direction. Awareness, we're creating awareness. We need to then take this down to the grassroots level, take it in languages and through mediums that they can key into and buy into this, right? Languages and platforms that that can reach them. So awareness, very important. And on the awareness side, I would say collaboration, multi-stakeholder collaboration. I feel like we keep doing things in like fragmented ways, right? So you have Bank A doing their breast cancer awareness work. But who is monitoring? How are we monitoring the progress and the gains that we're making, right? And so collaboration between public health institutions, like of course the one that I run, and I'm not even trying to market HIGC.
Too late.
But
will you send an invoice? Too late. We're sending an invoice.
No, but collaboration between public health institutions and private organizations, just so that we're able to have maybe like a breast cancer dashboard where we're monitoring the progress that we're making with the awareness campaigns. On the government side, I would say, one, again, I already talked about it, including breast cancer screening and treatment as part of the planned benefits for NHIA, extending that, cascading that to the state level and local government level as well, upskilling the community health extension workers and making primary health, making it part of the primary health care plans. We keep talking about tax net, bringing people into the tax net. How about we talk about bringing people into the health insurance net, right, so that they can benefit from this. Again, the National Cancer Health Fund, again, strengthening it to ensure that it is more accessible to more people. And then again, increased awareness, increase public-private partnerships, again, to increase the number of oncology centers and treatment centers as well. So public-private partnerships, because we know that government cannot do it alone, and a lot more, but I know that we're pressed for time. But
you're an expert in this. Doctor, thank you. We appreciate you for coming on. Dr. Owen Omojo, public health expert, giving us a bit of insight, as last month was Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It doesn't mean it stops there. It means that we must continue as individuals, private entities, as well as corporations to continue, and also government to continue to sound the alarm and raise awareness about breast cancer. Let's switch gears now to Focus Africa. Roll the clip.
Yes, just before we wrap things up on Breakfast Extra today, we still have some conversation to have. This is our last segment, of course, and it's called Africa, where we sport these stories shaping the continent. This morning, we turn to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the United Nations is warning of one of Africa's worst hunger crises in decades. According to the World Food Programme and FAO, over 26 million people are facing severe food insecurity. Now, that's about 1 in 4 in Congo.
Armed conflicts, displacement, and declining global aid have deepened the crisis, pushing millions at the brink of starvation. Now, the UN says it needs nearly $500 million in emergency funding to respond, but international support is fast dwindling. And so to unpack the crisis from a humanitarian and governance perspective, as well as health, we have with us Dr. Philip Njemanzi. He's the chairman of the International Institute of Advanced Research and Training at Chidikon Medical Center. Also joining us is Army Zadini, is editor-in-chief of the Kinshasa Times. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for coming on. Let me start with you, Doctor. 26 million people facing hunger. It is staggering. And so from a public health standpoint, what's the real impact, human impact of this crisis? And why is the DRC seeing this sharp rise in food insecurity?
Yes, actually, the insecurity in the Democratic Republic of Congo is the main driving force for this. Of course, the hunger epidemic is such that it has a very devastating humanitarian dimension. But the key problem is the lack of peace, so that people can live in a secure environment and take care of themselves. They don't need food aid. What they need is peace. And despite all the moves taken lately, even by Donald Trump and the leaders of the South, including the president of the DRC, it doesn't seem to have really quietened the guns in this area. And this is the main driving force. This is why there is this hunger epidemic, because otherwise, if people were settled, we wouldn't have this situation.
Amy Zomveni, as someone on the ground in Kinshasa, how would you describe the daily reality of this crisis? What are you hearing from communities most affected?
Thank you very much for having me. In fact, this situation is mostly due to the protracted war which has been prevailing in the DRC pretty much for the past 30 years, and has resulted into many people being internally displaced. And when you are displaced, you lose access to your livestock, you lose access to your farms. And because this situation has been going on for many years, the consequence is that now the DRC is one of the worst hunger crises in the world. So on the ground, it's mostly the internally displaced people that are gravely affected, and they are mostly located in the eastern part of the country.
Right. And we understand that reports suggest that the hunger crisis is worst in conflict-prone eastern province like Ituri and North Kivu. How much of this is directly tied to the conflict?
Pretty much all of it, because the western part of the DRC is or has been enjoying some level of peace for many, many years. And that part of the country, you have mentioned Ituri, North Kivu, and now South Kivu, which are provinces occupied by rebel movements. These provinces represent close to 10% of the Congolese population. So this is a very important part of the population, and they are now being affected by that, unfortunately, but down situation. On the other hand, the country is also having a lot of problems in terms of infrastructure, in terms of access to land. You know, this is a very big country, even though blessed with approximately 80 million of arable land, but that is not developed, and unfortunately, the country is not able to meet the needs of its population. And also at international level, aid is dwindling, and that, in fact, is actually aggravating the problem.
I want to come to you now, Dr. Njemanzi. The DRC is one of Africa's most resource-rich nations. One would wonder, why is such a country still dependent on aid to feed its people? Is this a failure of leadership, or is this a global issue now?
Yeah, this is what we have been pointing out for years. The aid issued by UN and all these international agencies creates dependency. And because when they come with this aid, they come with the whole mechanisms to accomplish it. That means right from the food delivery, the systems, who are the officials, All these are sourced by the World Food Program or the UN, and these are structures that are not inherently present within the Democratic Republic of Congo or anywhere else in Africa. So this type of is actually the part of the problem, even though it provides immediate food. But the truth of the matter is that on the long-term basis, it creates dependency without structures. So you will see a country, even if you should give the Democratic Republic of Congo, if they have the money to sell some diamonds and all that, and then they have the money, they still will not have the structure to get it to the right people. And this is because of the UN-styled agencies that they and the type of aid they issue. This has been very, very detrimental to Africa in DRC and elsewhere across the continent.
And as we're talking about, health, the UN has now appealed for a $500 billion or million dollars for assistance when it comes to the humanitarian crisis in Congo. And yet the global response have also remained low. It makes me wonder about media itself, whether it's Congolese media covering this or whether it's international media covering the story and what's happening in Congo. Do you think it's contributing to what we're seeing in terms of response globally? Let me come to you there, Amy.
Indeed. Of course, local media are covering the dire situation that has been prevailing. In fact, in March 2025, DRC has been declared the worst global hunger situation. So the situation not only has been covered by domestic media, but also by international media. But now, if you look at the global aid environment, DRC was receiving, I'll just take the example of United States International Agency for Development, which was unfortunately gutted, which was providing close to $1 billion of aid to the DRC every year. Now that is gone, which means most of that money which was trying to alleviate the situation is no longer there, and this aggravates the situation. Coming back to what the doctor said, the DRC is a textbook example of a paradox of the plenty, a country which has a lot of resources in terms of minerals, in terms of arable land. And I think that what needs to happen now is for the DRC to find domestic solutions, homegrown solutions to the problem of hunger, and that would demand better governance, better leadership, so that the money the country can generate is translated into addressing the issues of the people, including hunger.
Let me come to you, Dr. Njamanze now. Now, beyond food supply, what other health crises are emerging from this hunger situation the most? Is it malnutrition? Is it disease outbreak? Or is it, just migration pressure? Which is it?
Yes, actually the main threat that the whole population faces, what we call diarrheal disease. Diarrheal disease is just because you're drinking impure water. The water is not clean, and most of these are improvised. And this will kill 50% of children under 5. Most likely the most devastating illness they will suffer. There are other things are present, of course, because people are crowded. You should expect rising rates of tuberculosis in the camps. So there is no doubt that this type of epidemics will start arising. Malnutrition will be very much present because the amount of protein being consumed by each person is very, very low. Yes, and as I said, it's an opportunity also for the DRC government to stand up, and for the African Union also to stand up to this. So I do not see an epidemic that will need the whole world structures that will vanish immediately, maybe 2-3 months after the epidemic. They will leave the place. So it would be nice to use this as an opportunity, even though it's a great challenge for the African Union and the regional government, and be able to provide an African solution to this. in a more sustainable basis, resettlement and people of livelihood.
Right. The UN is requesting for $500 million to help bring aid to the affected regions. Do you think that will be enough in solving the starvation crisis? And would that go far, helping the populace in that area? Let me start with you, Doctor. Doctor, if you can hear me, I was asking whether
the figure of 500 sounds big, but the figure 500 million sounds large, quite all right, but the truth of the matter is that the UN logistics alone, their own bureaucracy will take up a lot of that money before you start getting to the real aid itself. So it is something that, as I said, unless we have a homegrown situation whereby we can have internal places where we can acquire this money, but if you're going to give aid, you have to move something like soya bean from the United States in a ship. These costs are enormous. But if we can use an African solution where we can get this same thing within the African regional area, we'll do this a lot more will be accomplished for at least a lower cost.
Right. And also to you, Amy, right? One thing is to get that money and get the aid. Another is to have access to those conflict-prone regions. Looking from your own vantage point, can they get access to those regions? And would the government protect them when it comes to handling the humanitarian issues?
I think that raises two issues. As I speak, Goma in Eastern DRC, which is the capital city, I might say, or the economic capital of Eastern DRC, is where you find the only international airport, which unfortunately now is closed. And now there have been negotiations, I think this week in France, aimed at reopening that airport. Now, if that airport is reopened, that could give a direct lifeline that would allow the aid to reach the capital city in the Eastern DRC, and then from there be deployed to those that are in need. That's the first thing. The second thing is that peace. You might get the aid in Goma, but how would you get it to the people that need it, that are far from Goma, that demands that the environment is conducive and that security prevails? And unfortunately now security is not there. And also aid, I think the doctor mentioned it, it is only a band-aid solution. It is not sustainable, because solution should be able to last long, not just to intervene for a couple of months, maybe a year, and then again go back for another round of funding. So to me, homegrown solutions, peace, would be the bedrock of any lasting solutions to the hunger problem prevailing in the country.
Amy, let me ask you, looking at a bigger picture now, do Congolese citizens still have faith in their government to handle humanitarian issues, or is the trust gap getting wider?
It is getting wider. The government can leverage means to address the situation, but unfortunately is assigning that money to other pressing issues. And on the other hand, the international aid is there dwindling and access is still a problem. So there is a trust gap between what the expectations of the populations are and what the government can do. And also, as I've indicated, the major hurdle, the major blockade now is the fact that that part of the country is controlled by a rebel movement. So it is a de facto some sort of a part where government activities, unfortunately, are not extended there.
And lastly, for you, Doctor, what's the long-term impact, for these millions that are at the brink of starvation, and for that region, looking at it from a public health standpoint, what are we looking at that 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line?
Yes, well, the long-term implications are huge, because if you are underfed with protein and vitamins, what happens is that the brain development in children will lag behind by 3-4 years sometimes. So you will have a group of people who have grown up in this generation who will perform mentally far more below their expected performance. And this is bad because what you're going to have is an underdeveloped class of people who are practically, for the modern economy, disabled, just not by a fault of theirs or what happened, just because they were born through a crisis. So I think the thing is that UNICEF, which is the UN agency that cares about this, should be up and doing with the child population and make sure that adequate nutrition is provided alongside providing real food.
Right. And lastly, for you, Amy, just to wrap up, before UN can raise its funds, before the Red Cross, before UNICEF, and even UNDP can get into those regions, do you see the government of the DRC stepping in to at least provide some semblance of assistance to those in the conflict regions?
That would only be possible if peace, sustainable peace, is restored to those parts of the country. Because then, if peace is restored, access becomes available, and then a lifeline is open to allow domestic aid to reach, and also international aid to reach those parts of the country. And let's hope that the airports of Goma is reopened in the very foreseeable future to allow at least the emergency international aid to be to be shipped there to allow an immediate alleviation of the problem that is prevailing there.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Njamanze and Amy Zomveni, for this valuable insights you've provided for us this morning. Of course, the hunger crisis in the DRC is a human story that speaks to where Africa is right now, and as much tells us that we have a lot of work to do as regards provision and humanitarian activities, basically. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, once again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. And that's where we close the curtains for this weekend's installment of Breakfast Extra. It's been sublime. Chiweta, it's been fun.
It's been amazing.
It's been fun. Thank you. Likewise yourself. Now, we'll be back Saturday. Of course, Saturday, bright and early, 7 a.m. is going to be a switcheroo from the usual because Anambra will be heading back to the polls for the gubernatorial election. So join us then. Live coverage the entirety of the day. You can always catch our faces on the show within the hour every day on the station to bring you the news at the top of the hour. But also make sure to tune in Monday morning, bright and early, because Olive and, of course, Joe, not to forget Benga, are the trio on the Breakfast Central Express, which starts from 7 all the way down to 10 a.m. From myself and Chiweta, it's good morning.
Yeah, good morning.